Welcome to Bring It Home. I'm Craig Fuller and JP Hempstead as we walk through the story of American reindustrialization and all of the topics that's driving the next American decade and really the next American century. Each week, we talk about all of the major news stories, as well as bring in guests that are going to feature a part of the American reindustrialization story that perhaps is off your radar. We've talked about so many things. Today, we're going to actually feature one of America's most iconic businesses, one that has been instrumental in the American westward expansion. We've got the Chief Information Officer of Union Pacific. Really excited about this conversation.
Yeah, Rahul's going to be great. But we've also got some headlines to start the show off with. First one, manufacturing investment from Eaton. They make like transformers for the electrical grid. They've got two big plants where they build these transformers in Wisconsin. They've just announced that they're investing $340 million in a new facility in Jonesboro, South Carolina, to increase their U.S. production of three-phase transformers. So it's $340 million, and hiring production will probably start in 2027, but they announced that, and they're getting that started. So
this is all about the grid, right? Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, and what is so underloved, we got to do a grid show at some point. Yeah. It's like, what's so underappreciated is the sophistication of the grid, but also if we're going to have these huge data centers, if we're going to have
electrification of
cars, you got to have electric cars, EVs, all of that takes grid, and it's a part that's oftentimes off so many people's radar. I think it's a really cool story that we're seeing an investment here.
It is cool, and it's not the first one of these that we've seen, a major expansion from sort of like electric grid infrastructure companies. So yeah, it's definitely a trend, and we should do a story on that, or show on that. Another one, Keytronic. This is an electronics manufacturer. They make like keyboards and like mice and like input devices for computers, right? They have a big plant in Fayetteville, Arkansas. They're moving it to Springdale, Arkansas. They're massively expanding it, adding it. I think they're only spending like $28 million to like do this, but they're adding like 400 jobs, and it's supposed to increase their U.S. production by 40%. And they said in the press release that it was partially in response to like tariffs and trade barriers, and being closer to their core customers.
I mean, Fayetteville and Springdale are not that far away.
Yeah. I think this is just like moving to a bigger place.
They're moving across town, if you will. So that's really cool. And I think you think about computer peripheral component manufacturers being really Asian based. It's really cool to see an investment in the U.S.
Yeah, and this is also like, I would think, I mean, not Keytronics or anything, but it's fairly like low end electronics manufacturing. It's not like this is like TMC and like they're actually building the chips. They're assembling like keyboards and stuff. So it's interesting to see companies that are already starting to increase production of that sort of end of the spectrum.
Lower end, sort of like commoditized.
Which you would think was all going to, like Vietnam or something like that.
Yeah, we should definitely be celebrating that story, because like it's something that the sexy stuff, the big semiconductors, gets a lot of attention. Something like that isn't getting as much.
Yeah, it's cool that people are betting on the fact that they can build things that cost like $100-$150 here. Things that aren't it's crazy high end. And then the other really big announcement, which is cool, just in the past few days, is Zuzu investing $280 million in a plant in Greenville County, South Carolina. They're going to be building gas, electric, and diesel trucks there. They got a 1 million square foot facility. Assembly operations are expected to begin in 2027. When it fully ramps, it's going to be producing like 50,000 units a year. So it's a
So
big,
lots of big,
a big automaker starting in
lot
a
of
huge
vehicles
plant
rolling over.
in
And
the
South
South.
Carolina has been such a winner in the auto. I remember when BMW opened up the Spartanburg. You know, Spartanburg in Greenville was sort of I think in many ways like Chattanooga probably has a 20-year lead on Chattanooga from but it was sort of like, why would you build a plant in South Carolina?
And even Boeing has a plant in
Very
South Carolina.
substantial. You know, they do have the port of Charleston, which helps quite a bit, being in that part of the country. Great labor is what we've learned about auto plants. Love to move to the South because of just the resources available, both in labor and materials. But this is just another example of an auto company investing in the South, the American South, which has become really the new Detroit in many ways.
Yeah, probably has a lot to do with trade policy and just like this, potentially automation and just like the sort of compressing spread in like labor costs that used to be, really wide and forcing a lot of offshoring. Now that trend seems to be reversing.
You got to credit the chicken tax, which is really what caused the sort of first investment in U.S. auto manufacturing, or really helped accelerate that, was this, embargo tax this tariff that was put on, called the chicken tax, which really significantly increased the cost of importing cars, and that's where we saw in the U.S. really a whole level of investment, particularly from Japanese manufacturers, was one of the first ones that took the leap of building U.S. manufacturing plants.
Yeah. So those are the topics of the day. Lots of interesting things happening. All of them, we had 2 stories in South Carolina, 1 in Arkansas. So
American South,
big day for the SEC.
It's all SEC country.
And now we can turn our attention to the western half of the country and start talking about Union Pacific.
Union Pacific, such a fascinating business. And I'm really excited to have our guest that's going to join us.
What's the masterclass all about? Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. If you're a driver, you're an owner-operator, you're a fleet owner, whether you're in compliance services, dispatcher, no matter what it is, masterclass is for you. Every 2 weeks, you're going to sit down with me and we're going to go over certain business topics that are related specifically to your small trucking company operations. We're going to help you with everything from compliance to how to negotiate better on the spot board, how to find direct freight, and everything in between. This is the reason why you don't want to miss out on Masterclass. It's about an hour to an hour and a half, and then on top of that, you'll have the library to you so that way you can always research and reflect back onto it. Don't miss out this opportunity. This is built specifically for you. I'm excited and I hope to see you in class.
JP, I'm so excited about this conversation that we're about to have with the Chief Information Officer of Union Pacific.
Yeah, Rahul Jalali is coming to us all the way from Omaha, and really excited to hear what he's going to talk about. I anticipate we'll get into things like visibility, safety, network optimization, all of the ways that Union Pacific is kind of driving technology across the organization. Rahul, are you here?
Hey, it's great to be both of you. Bring It Home podcast. Love to speak to you guys about all things tech and all things UP.
Well, really, Union Pacific is so core to American history. And one of the things that I love about the railroads is just the fact that American Western expansion, the whole idea of manifest destiny is tied to the expansion of the railroads. And you guys, in terms of Union Pacific, have played a key part in the entire American story. You were at Walmart, another company that's part of the more modern sort of story of American history. You went over to Union Pacific. What was that transition like?
Yeah, so, I'm not a career railroader. As you noted, I came from Walmart after 24 years at Fortune 1 and saw the retail and the consumer change and evolve in the last 24 years. So that's in my blood, Craig. A big reason why our railroad looked in the direction for the next CIO in the retail space was to bring that customer centricity. And it's been 4+ years of amazing transformation here at Union Pacific. And specifically about the role, I oversee Union Pacific's technology strategy implementation, driving the core strategy of the company, which is around driving safety, be the safest railroad in America, drive service that our customers desire, drive operational excellence in a very transparent way. And what excites me is that we're really driving that next era of railroading driven by track and setting some benchmarks, not just for Union Pacific, but also for the railroad industry. Now, this transition was, I don't know what to expect in the whole transition because, moving the industries completely. But what I am super confident about is that principles with which that operate in retail also work together in supply chain. I give a lot of credit to UP for looking in the direction of the consumer retail, right? So at the end of the day, what do our customers want? What do the retail customers want? And those principles, do they apply here at Union Pacific? They want ease of doing business. They want real-time visibility, aka where's my stuff? They want real-time info on any exceptions, and they want an easy way to deal with disruptions. And we are building that next generation of these rich real-time platforms out there to go make that come to fruition here at Union Pacific from a customer centricity perspective. So I'm very excited that the principles of retail apply very well to supply chain, and I am more excited about the future next 5 to 10 years. This renaissance of sorts is going to bring to the railroad industry.
Is this a new direction for the railroads? It seems that historically railroads have been sort of viewed as sort of very stodgy, bureaucratic, very slow to adopt technology companies. Is that a fair representation, or something changing?
No, I would actually say that railroads, from the early days, I've got this picture of President Lincoln, which was President's Day yesterday, who's our founder. From those early days, if you actually notice the telegraph poles on the side of the railroad, so the technology adoption at railroads has been from a very, very early time. Now, all class ones are making progress in various stages of transformation. But let me tell you about Union Pacific. At Union Pacific, we have technology that's embedded into everything we do here, right? It's tightly coupled with the overall strategy, which is to be the safest railroad in North America, provide the customer service that our customers desire, and be operationally efficient with one goal, JP and Craig, that we need to grow, right? In this renaissance that's happening, we need to be able to grow. And we use technology to continuously innovate on all those fronts, right? So I don't think it's a new thing, but what's new and evolving is the focus around the customer centricity, right? How do you become customer centric industry? How we certainly strive to be a customer centric company, right? Now I'll give you a couple of more things that are different here at Union Pacific. If you notice, like world's most admired companies in today's world, they're platform companies. So think Amazon, Meta, Google, etc. So platform companies generally seem to be winning. And it's our great desire to be a platform company. We've invested and built now state-of-the-art platforms that drive our company. We've developed a state-of-the-art transportation management system that we launched last year, and it's first of its kind in rail industry and really setting the benchmark. I'll give you some stat, which is staggering. So within these platforms, you do machine-to-machine talk or API calls. We're doing 6 billion API calls a day, right? That is what best of the industries in Silicon Valley do out there, right? So we're going toe-to-toe in terms of the technical know-how, the engineers that we have. We have no more mainframes to run our operations here at UP. So what's the so what out of that? We're really beginning to enable the ease of doing business with customers. And we are also in parallel, so we're driving operations and the operational efficiency. We're driving the customer centricity. And in addition, we're doing one of the fastest and most efficient back office transformations. So think finance, HR, procurement, law department, etc., on SAP. So all in company-fied, all in transformation for the company to basically get to that core tenets of the company, which is how do you actually become safer as a railroad and as an industry? How do you drive customer centricity and the service? And how do you become operationally efficient so that we can continue to grow? So those principles of retail very well apply into supply chain, which was quite a pleasant surprise because I really didn't know what to expect in a brand new industry.
Rahul, let me ask you a little bit, let me drill down a little bit into visibility specifically. I'm familiar with how that works in trucking, for example. Oftentimes it's as simple as a GPS in the cab. It can be done with APIs where there's certain sort of milestones along a shipment's journey and it's checked into different places. Can you describe the technical challenges of delivering visibility data for the railroad and sort of what you guys have been building over at Union Pacific over the past few years?
Yeah, absolutely. So I talked about these rich real-time platform and this core transportation management system. We are harnessing and building these minimally customized back office systems, ultimately to deliver rich real-time data that we're beginning to harness. So I talked about the 6 billion API calls. What's exciting is that we are able to extend that to our customers. What does that mean? That means if you have a big oil and gas shipper, we are able to talk to them machine to machine so that they do not have to call into UP, but we are able to connect and provide them the data that they need in real time. Now that's for the big shippers, and they are state of the art, and they will have the technical know-how or the teams to kind of do that machine to machine. We make that available. We have over 100 APIs now available for our shipper community, and it's exponentially growing because they are seeing the value of this real-time data. For the general populace, including them, we're now building a flagship product called Customer Vision. Because what I heard from the customers, and I go to a lot of customer meetups, I go to customer advisory boards, I meet up with shippers probably 5, 6, 8 times a year, right, in different forums. And their biggest ask of the railroad, our railroad, is, hey, enable ease of doing business, right? So in order to do that, we're revamping our complete up.com website because that's sometimes the first time they deal with us, or that's where they deal with us majority of the times. We're transforming it to be a customer-centric. So later this year, we will have unveiled a completely revamped up.com that is focused on customer, right? Think about that retail philosophy that's coming in here, right? Second is the customers, JP, have told us loud and clear. Once we start doing business with you, I want to know where's my stuff. I want to know if there are any exceptions. So we run a large outdoor factory, 32,000 miles of track. So stuff happens, exceptions happen. So tell us about the exceptions. And then can we do something about those exceptions in real time? And we agree with them. So we formed a consortium of about 170 customers, and we said, we want to develop this product, right? If you have to go to a lot of places within our website, or you have to make those phone calls, how can we provide you a single pane of glass to develop a product that solves that problem for you, aka the visibility? And I'm telling you, like, we developed a minimal viable product, and we said, is this what you want? And 170 people are providing feedback in real time for us so that we can develop that product in a way that's helpful to them, not just from a perspective of the railroad, but really from a product perspective of the end customer out there. So it's things like that we're beginning to put that art and science into the things, having really tech be the part of the problem solving from a customer centricity perspective. Those are just a couple examples. I can give you another example. We had our intermodal ramps, and truck drivers would say, hey, it takes like lots of minutes to get into the ramp. So when in the rush hour, it sometimes could back up to a mile, 2 miles with trucks in there. We said, all right, let's put tech to its use. We developed a product called progressive gating technology. We put AI, machine vision, we put cameras in, it's a tunnel, trucks go, and they don't have to stop. We can auto-magically, that's a word, auto-magically, detect basically the truck, we validate it in real time, and we say, it's a valid truck for our ramp. So gone are the days when, our ramps used to be backed up and could be, block the highway exits and all. And now it's kind of like, I welcome you guys to come with me at some point. But it's a work of art to see that. And tech was at the forefront of that. That was direct feedback that, for example, the trucking companies and our truckers had with us, right? So keeping an ear to the ground, listening to the customers with 2 ears, and having a bias for action is the new railroad, is the new UP. I absolutely love that.
The time improvements that you guys saw through just the delays that existed before you implemented this technology, what is the throughput that you're able to sort of increase the velocity of trucks and containers moving than where you were before?
Tremendously. So think about it, right? Time is money. So if people don't have to stop for hours, or they don't need they get a single pane of glass to get all the visibility tools that they need. It could be in so many different ways, right? On our website, if they don't have to go looking and searching, and it's actually done in a very customer-centric way, just like you would do on leading e-commerce websites. You go and you are able to find things easily. That's the mindset that we're putting in. So how it manifests itself is really, are we able to grow because the customer stickiness and customer centricity principles are at play? We think it's a winning strategy, and we're beginning to see the results of that all in.
One of the things that we've talked quite a bit, JP and I have, but also just generally is, if we're really going to have a robust manufacturing economy, a resurgence in manufacturing throughout North America, it's going to require more infrastructure, more investment in transportation resources and supply chain resources. One of the things that strikes me is that there are so many inefficiencies across the supply chain that it's not just building more railroad tracks or expanding the number of trains, it's making the trains more efficient, just like you talked about, making the intermodal yard more efficient through technology. It strikes me that those actually can deliver much higher returns on investment than actually building more track would do.
We build tracks where it's required, and it really depends on the customer needs. So we are very dynamic in that regard. But supply chain, to your point, is extremely dynamic, right? And it oscillates with economy. But what differentiates good from great, and I have worked now for 2 great companies, is how resilient your company is, right? And I would say, I'm very proud to say that as a company, we have this divine discontent with the status quo and are constantly evolving so that we do better for our customers. So late last year, Craig, you may remember, we saw an unexpected surge in intermodal volumes on the West Coast port. Our resiliency helped handle that, right? You have this current resurgence, and you guys are very passionate about this topic of domestic manufacturing. Is going to increase the demand for railroad transportation, meaning Union Pacific is expanding the capacity. We have to optimize the networks, to your point, just as you said. And just a stat for you, UP invests $10 million each day, every day of the year, into building and maintaining the network. Be it the physical or the technology that's required to drive the investment, $10 million each day, every day of the year. Now, we look at what are the trends. We stay very close to our customers. and we make plans according to what we hear from the customers, and we gather to stay ahead of the curve. So if we hear that there's an investment required where we need to support an industry that's going to be nearshoring or creating a domestic manufacturing play, well, we'll work the math out and play a part in that. But the big part that I am excited about is the role technology is playing in this key role in this effort. So think about optimization, etc. I'll tell you what. I actually made a commitment at our UP Investor Day that which was late last year, that we will have $100 million in productivity savings just based on the optimization models and the data optimization of the network that we can do. Because I saw that as an opportunity, and we are very excited as a technology team to be paying off for the company in this key optimization journey that we are over the course of next 3 to 5 years. Now, why does that happen? That happens because the UP has been a leader in investment in the key platform journey that we seek to be, right? The platforms are built. Now is the time for the so what. And we are in that so what era. And that's why I went out on the limb and said, we can drive $100 million in productivity over the next 3 years solely based on data. I'm not talking about all-in productivity. I'm talking about what data-driven optimization productivity will become. But net, we're investing $10 million each day.
Rahul, I love what you're saying about data optimization, the efficiency of the network, and I want to pick up on a specific example that you gave, which was that that huge surge of containers into the West Coast in the late 2024. At FreightWaves, we noticed that container volumes were really high, just as high as they were during the peaks of the pandemic. But the railroads were moving the freight much more smoothly than they had 4 years prior. There weren't the huge snarls either at the ports or in sort of the centrally located yards. Like I'm thinking of places like Chicago and St. Louis. It was remarkable that I guess I'm saying that we had been accustomed to seeing service degrade when volume spiked, right? We didn't see that in this case. Can you tell us how Union Pacific in particular was able to pull that off, and what changes or what you guys put in place to allow you to handle that volume so well?
Yeah, so I'll give you two specific things. One is to talk about these new platforms, JP, right? Which I'm telling you is state of the art, rich real-time data. And for me as a technologist, I look at data as the new oil, right? Connected data can and is being harnessed to ensure that we develop new technologies so that we are able to stay ahead of the curve, right? Whether it's the customer service or it's the operations portion of it, right? What happened in case of the intermodal surge is our resiliency, our transportation plans used to be built and be somewhat reactive. But we're in this era of AI, right? We're in this era of this connected data, and we're able to get this real-time data, and we are revamping the entire transportation plan to be called as adaptive transportation plan. So think of it nothing but we can actually change transportation plans on the fly, right? And gone are the days when it was days or weeks. It's like hours to go change that. So we have developed technologies, and it's only going to get better over the next course of 3 to 5 years, right? In harnessing the transportation plan. That was a key factor. Two is the partnerships with the ports itself. We have an excellent partnership with Port of LA and Port of Long Beach. And Port of LA used to share the data back with us, so it was a two-way communication. Port of Long Beach, as of, I would say about 6-8 weeks back, we started exchanging data for the first time with Port of Long Beach in a bi-directional manner. So then they know what's coming their way, we know what's coming our way. And what that enables is the models to adapt to, hey, what's the port capacity, what's out there on the ground, what's going to get grounded, and how can we handle that in the most efficient manner. You see, data exchange, this whole idea of things that we can extend into it. So think about, like, if we can continue to extend that with the ocean carriers, right? So that we know as a company what's coming our way even more before. What can our models do to even accentuate those problems in the future? I think next time we have a surge, based on what I know about the data exchange now, will be even better with the Port of Long Beach as a result of this bidirectional thing. So it's a lot of things at play. First starts with the tech. Second starts with the process change in being more predictive about what's happening. And third is this customer centricity with the ports itself, right? Where we're bidirectionally talking to them in a very, very meaningful way. Does that help, JP?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is pretty fascinating how the volumes. It was interesting. Bloomberg's economist, this was maybe a year ago, JP, had a conversation about looking at the volume of containers and expecting a massive snarl in the supply chain. That didn't happen. It was a non-event, frankly. Unless you saw the data, you wouldn't realize that the supply chain, the volume of international containers, was at these peaks.
Exactly. Everyone was like traumatized from COVID and
it was a non-event. Credit to the railroads, credit to Union Pacific, credit to the ports, credit to the supply chain. But I think that's one of the great things is these investments, these technology investments that Rahul was talking about, really are invisible oftentimes.
Right, and when it's working well, no one knows.
No one knows. I mean, supply chain is like a utility company. You don't think about the power. Speaking of, we have winter storms around here. You're not thinking about the power company until the power's out. But that investment, much like in the railroads, is making the trains run on time, literally, and increasing the throughput. You shouldn't have to think about it, which I think is largely Rahul. I want to move to a different topic that's been front and center to supply chains, and it's really also happened in retail, but certainly a major issue in supply chains that's, I wouldn't say sneaking up on us, but certainly accelerating, which is theft and really what's taking place across the whole security of the movement of cargo. Organized crime has found the transportation infrastructure to be very attractive for large degrees of theft. What are you guys doing at Union Pacific to actually help mitigate theft that is taking place and putting customers' products at risk?
Yeah, so it is concerning whenever that happens, and we saw the incidents that kind of played in the national media, and we took some robust steps as a company for that. Some of it's physical security, some of it's enablement of the police force. Union Pacific has their own police force, and they do a phenomenal job day in and day out. Bringing in more resources. Some of it's actually working with the local governments itself to kind of have a better understanding of what that happens and what that means to the economy. And fourth, an exciting thing for me is the role technology plays, right? We have, for our fleet, and I'm talking about intermodal fleet, over 80%, we have equipped it with GPS trackers. So we can in real time know what's where. And part of these trackers is, it provides an opportunity to kind of have a door open in a geolocation that is not supposed to be open, and we get real time feedback, and we actually notify our police force in real time, so they can react in a much better way. But it is something that my peer and head of operations Eric Geringer thinks a lot about. We're trying to be two in a box in mindset with him on how do we help the technology to be a mitigating factor. But I'll tell you what, it evolves, and we have to evolve faster than the bad guys out there. So and we've made tremendous progress, I would say, in last 2 years on all those fronts. Whether it's technology, the physical barriers that we have put, the working better with the local governments wherever they are, etc. It's beginning to pay off for us generally.
Yeah, I would imagine that you guys have some advantage over the truckers because you have these large police forces that you mentioned. You've got this large infrastructure, large technology, whereas oftentimes in the trucking industry, these are very small operators that just don't have the resources or the ability to really lean on the authorities to actually do something about it. It's been a bit of an issue. The fact is, it's not going away. And social media and major media, when they show these videos of theft, just propagates and continues to build. So it's something that is really top of mind of anybody in supply chain.
Yeah, and maybe related to that, Rahul, you brought up safety and making Union Pacific the safest railroad. I would love to hear your sort of breakdown of, the root causes of these accidents and how data analysis or technology, can make the railroad safer, and sort of what the scope of the problem is, what the buckets of these accidents are, and what someone like you can do to make the railroad safer.
Yeah, so safety. We start with safety every meeting, and we end with safety every meeting. And our business model is somewhere in between because we want our employees to go home, to their loved ones. We want customer cargo to reach its destination at the end of the day, right? And technology plays a key part in there, JP. We look at everything is numeric when it comes to safety. You can look at personal injury rates. You can look at derailments. You can look at everything out there. Trains breaking into, etc. Right? And we take it upon ourselves to say, how do we work? How can technology be an enabler in that? Right? I'll give you an example of how we have made the railroad a much safer railroad with one example. We have trains that traverse all sorts of terrain. So you can think of a long train that's kind of going over, mountains, valleys, etc. You have a lot of dynamics and physics at play on those knuckles that can play a part in the train breaking into, given the physics forces. We actually have developed a product called Physics Train Builder here at UP. And what that does is it actually analyzes the topography of the train and the train makeup. And it also suggests everything that needs to be placed according to weight distribution. And given the topography it's going to go, we can actually predict if the train's going to have a problem. If it's going to have a problem, it never leaves the station, never leaves the terminal, right? Till it's fixed. And then we keep enhancing the model to see if over time, it needs to be adjusted. But since we have implemented this product, we have had zero buff forces. Buff is where knuckles are kind of connected. Derailments in the company, zero. A technology solution. So every train that's actually built gets put through this. Every time we add something to the train, the train logic runs through this, and we're making it safer. No if, then, else, or but, right? We have implemented something called as mobile NX, which is entry and exit at our terminals, where our hump yards, and it's a single screenshot of single screen that kind of shows how the trains need to be how the cars need to be distributed. One single pane of glass to our operators in the yard. Prior, they would have to walk a lot. slip, trips, and falls is not a good business, right? So we're minimizing the slip, trips, and falls. So we're actually beginning to leverage technology in a very meaningful way here at UP. And we look at like, okay, what is the biggest problem? And can technology play a part? And what is the role of the process change that needs to accompany the technology? Technology is one thing, the process has to change with it. But what I'm excited is that our ops team led by Eric, they are such good partners with us. They either provide the solutions or we provide a solution, and they work hand in glove with us from a tech being adopted and tech being implemented in a very process-centric way. So the goal is, to be the safest railroad in North America. No if then else about it.
That is so fascinating. Just the technology that goes into these.
I love that, like
Automotive.
physics simulator and like building the whole train and then, matching it to the route and making sure that like the weight distributions and the forces that'll be acting on it are all.
We got to come check this out.
That's
We got to
so
do a
cool.
live. We got to come look at this technology. I think there's so many things. It's interesting because these railroad businesses are so large, and UP is the OG of the Western expansion. It's funny, Rahul, you mentioned Abraham Lincoln. I think you guys released the new library. I'm obsessed with libraries, by the way, with the Abraham Lincoln engine, a locomotive. Is that just this past week, I think?
Yes. So it's President Lincoln's. It was President Lincoln's 216th birth year, and we're very excited to launch the Abraham Lincoln locomotive that'll be in service, kind of showcase the legacy and the history. I'm fascinated by that guy. I always keep him right there.
It's so cool. It is.
We are very excited with the role that we play. And I was just asking people like, hey, when's the model replica going to come? I want that.
Well, I will say, so I bought trains.com, Trains Magazine, and Model Railroader Magazine. And so I wasn't a modeler before, but I've actually gotten into modeling, not personally, but really appreciate what people do for it. I do run a model, a Lionel train with my son. So when this comes out, when this model Abraham Lincoln comes out, I'm gonna have to get it because it's just a great part of the American history, and certainly so much tied to the railroads. The railroads are such a fascinating topic, and I don't think they get enough love from the media, just because it is such a the railroad community certainly loves it, but the broader public is completely unaware of what's actually taking place.
Right. No, that's totally true. Like you said, when the supply chain is working, it's invisible and people aren't thinking about it. And everyone loves to hate on the trucks on the road, but they don't love the intermodal trains that are driving by that are preventing the trucks.
I think it's so cool. The fascination. I have a bunch of young kids. I have 5 kids, but one of mine's a 5-year-old, and I have a set of twins that are 3. And just their eyes seeing these trains, I think somewhat we become so used to seeing it that we sort of forget it. But in the eyes of a child, it's completely different. Rahul, have you taken up modeling as a side hustle as part of your career at UP?
Modeling, as in fashion modeling?
No, railroad modeling. Are you doing any? Are you building any layouts internally?
We have got a few. We have a subsidiary that we run in Denver that has a wonderful model, and I wish I could have that in my basement at some point. But at some point I will. It's a pretty cool thing. I think railroads still fascinate majority of the Americans. I'm telling you. We had our big boy that you may be aware of. Mm-hmm. Tour last year, and there were places, I would say, Greg, in Chicago, for example, had 100,000 people there. I mean, you had to park like 2-3 miles away to get a glimpse of this thing. So it's still a very fascinating topic for a lot of the Americans.
Yeah, we went to the Amherst model show about a month ago, and it was there was 300 vendors. There were, like you said, probably tens of thousands of people over the course of a couple of days up there. So it is a fascinating topic, what's going on with the railroads. Rahul, I have to ask before you go, a lot of conversation has been about American reindustrialization. The railroads are going to play a key part in that. What gives you confidence that the railroads are going to be able to handle, particularly Union Pacific is going to be able to handle the volume if we're successful implementing a new industrial policy in the US and it does drive American reindustrialization? What gives you confidence in Union Pacific's ability to handle the volume that's going to be asked of it?
First, we're staying very close to the customer, right? And we make plans according to what we hear and what we gather to stay ahead of the curve. We just hosted a customer advisory board. We had a large number of customers, and the topics were like relevant to their growth, and what drives customer centricity. Second is we invest $10 million each day, every day of the year, into building and maintaining the network, according to what we hear and what we see the trends to be. And we wouldn't mind actually investing more if that's what's needed for growth, whether that's expanding the capacity or it's optimizing the networks. Third, and very selfishly, I see technology now playing that key role in that entire model in which we are integrated. As I told you, we are in a front to back transformation here at Union Pacific. This is unprecedented for a company to be getting, changed from the ops, the way we look at the customer, and changing the entire back office stack, actually in the middle of it, and beginning to see the so what and the optimization out of it. So to me, but it comes back to, can we stay customer centric, and can we keep our 2 ears open to what we're hearing so that you can plan and stay ahead of the curve, in my opinion, Craig.
Fascinating.
I feel confident about UP being able to handle that.
Well, you've done it for 150 years. What was the born on date? 162. A fascinating business.
Yeah.
I love the railroads. I do. I think it is it's just such a part of American history.
It's cool, and they've changed so much recently.
I mean, intermodal has become such an important part of the story. I mean, King coal was what drove a lot of the sort of early days, but as coal has continued to be less and less important, the railroads have stepped up. Intermodal, oil, energy. It's such an underappreciated part of American supply chain. So, Rahul, really appreciate your time today. Excited I want to come visit, by the way. I want to actually see the technology in action. I hope that you'll have us out there so that we can actually feature what you guys have built. This physics technology just sounds fascinating.
Yeah, I love that. I'm obsessed with that.
We welcome both of you anytime you come over. We truly love to showcase not just Union Pacific, but how Union Pacific is going to be a force to reckon with, a different kind of supply chain, different kind of transportation company over the course of the next 5 to 10 years. And I'm not saying we're going to build it or some futuristic thing out there. We're in the middle of building that right now. So we welcome you both.
I think a trip to Omaha is in our future, JP.
Right.
I think it would be cool to do an on-site visit and see the see the operation in action, but also go visit Action Intermodal Yard and see this. I can't wait. Rahul, really appreciate your time. It's been a fascinating conversation, a lot to cover, and hope to talk soon and visit you in Omaha.
Thank you. Absolutely a pleasure to talk to both of you.
Appreciate it. Really, JP, I just think about so much is going on in investment, and so much of the success of our economy is built on the success of the railroads. And it's so underappreciated.
It's fascinating, too, just the way that they've evolved over the past even decade, and the way that they're thinking, like Rahul said, about their customers, being customer-centric, moving different commodities at different speeds across their network, to fulfill those expectations. they've really come a long way, and it's fascinating to hear Rahul also say that like they're building these like customer portals that resemble like e-commerce more than they do like sort of the old-fashioned.
I think that's kind of demanded,
website.
isn't it? Because like kids are now, if you think about young, generation, the Zoomers are coming up from supply chain organizations, are taking over these transportation departments and have expectations. They were able to track their packages, whether it's on Walmart.com or Amazon. They're used to ordering food on Uber Eats.
Right.
And they're seeing sort of the progression. The Domino's pizza tracker is sort of the classic.
You can order a
case.
truck from an app too. So that's something that the railroads have to compete against.
Yeah,
right?
and so people expect that. In the mind of a young person, that I'm talking young person being 25 years old that's coming into these jobs, they're actually responsible for potentially millions, if not more, dollars. Have expectations when they walk in the door that technology exists, and they're historically been somewhat surprised that I can track a pizza, but I can't track a where my stuff is on a train or in a truck. And I think what we're seeing is that investment taking place. But I think, as Rahul discussed, that is increasing the velocity of the movement of cargo. This investment is making things more secure. It's certainly making it safer. It's making it easier, customer-centric, and that's all about that customer-centric mentality that is built and ingrained in Union Pacific. And they're doing it through technology, which I think is just incredible.
And like we said, with the intermodal surge on the West Coast in 2024, they're beating the expectations of even industry watchers and analysts who anticipated problems that never materialized.
It never happened. No one ever complained about a supply chain snarl last year, in spite of record container volumes into the U.S. And I think that is something that should be celebrated.
Yeah.
I do think the whole technology side, there is Rahul talked about the fascination that Americans have with trains. I would attest to that, as we've seen with our publications. But I also think the technology investments that are being made are not celebrated. You don't see a lot of Silicon Valley TechCrunch articles that are coming out about the trains and the technology that's taking place. A lot of this stuff is invisible because, to your point, it just should work, and that's the expectation. But there's so much investment. $10 million a day in just infrastructure investments to keep the trains running on time is pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's a big story that hasn't really been told by like the tech press, for example. Although they should, because these are huge, massively difficult operations to like run correctly. Like predicting whether a train is going to derail or not seems like the kind of like hard problem that would appeal to those.
But think about the physics. You have weather issues. You have heat. I mean, these
speed,
trains
momentum,
are so
like different
heavy.
parts of the train experiencing different momentum.
You have
at different
track
times.
that has to deal with different weather conditions. You have track that has to. This is physical, right? This is physical infrastructure, and just I think the track record, no pun intended, of the railroads in terms of safety should be also celebrated. Because it gets we always hear about the negative stuff. We don't hear about the things that actually happen.
Yeah.
And I think, that's stuff that definitely should be celebrated. It's, the safety record of the transportation industry, period, is something that isn't celebrated as much as it should be. I mean, whether we're talking the decline in accidents in cars, to the safety of the American airline system, it's getting a lot of bad press right now because of some of the recent accidents.
That's just because
if you look
expectations are so high.
Expectations are so high, it's why it's so shocking, but also the statistics of how safe the American transportation system is. People are flying a lot more. My wife asked me, why are we seeing so many transportation airline accidents? And it's like, because there's a lot more airplanes in the air. These things are surprising to us because they happen so rarely. And I think also the amount of trains and the amount of cargo that's moving through the supply chain, it should be celebrated. And I think we got to go to Omaha. I got to check this place out. I think it's going to be epic.
Let's do it.
So really excited about what's happening around American reindustrialization. Be sure to subscribe to Bring It Home. This is the podcast that talks and celebrates what's happening with the manufacturing physical goods economy and what it means for an American decade and another American century. You can find Bring It Home on your favorite podcast player, Also, subscribe to the newsletter that comes out to talk about all the major news topics related to American reindustrialization, where we celebrate everything that's going on around the topic.